Hey guys, Travis with Buckstorm. Just wanted to do a video today on scouting public land. We get a lot of questions from a lot of people and we're always happy to help out. So I thought maybe doing this video would be kind of a good instructional type video on the steps that we take when we're scouting. It can vary state to state, of course, but the same general principles apply. This video will kind of take you through some of the steps that we take to ensure a successful hunt. We'll start with when you're hunting public land, obviously there's other people, so you're sharing the resource with others, so always be courteous to them. But kind of what I lumped it into is there's multiple steps. So when it comes to scouting public land, I would say the steps would include e-scouting, shed hunting, summer scouting, even a little bit of in-season scouting, and then late season scouting, of course, too. So we'll start from the top. Number one, I would say with technology the way it is now, e-scouting is huge. Also another good method too is using like a printed map like this one here. Heritage Maps out of South Dakota prints these. So if you have an area you hunt, you can pick a spot, however many miles, and get it blown up so you can really see an in-depth big picture sitting right in front of you. It's a little easier to picture than looking at it on a phone or looking at it on a computer, but we use OnX maps. There's a lot of good ones out there for e-scouting as well. That's a big part of our scouting tools and hunting tools when we're actually in the field. So don't be afraid to use those. Huge tool. If you don't have some sort of app like OnX, you should. It will greatly increase your success. But it starts with e-scouting. A lot of different things to look at when you're looking at the app. I like to go on a computer when I'm actually using it as an e-scouting tool, get a little bigger screen. We'll look at, when we're shed hunting, we'll look at south slopes, main drainages, funnels like to and from, hay fields, alfalfa fields, cornfields, depending on where we're hunting. Look at the terrain, kind of find the natural funnel. It's pretty easy to see typically on those maps, and sometimes in extreme scenarios you can actually even see some trails on those maps, whether they're old cattle trails or whatever the case. But kind of cool, you can really target pinch points where like 3 draws come together. E-scouting is huge, which kind of rolls me into what I would say the next starting point would be for us anyhow, and not everybody does this, but I think shed hunting is an incredible tool for scouting. It's kind of an overlooked tool, and it's not so much finding the sheds to a deer or an elk that you might actually be hunting. It's more or less actually looking for rut sign. So a lot of times when we're out shed hunting, we'll be exploring new areas, and when we look at those new areas, we're looking for way more than just sheds. We're looking at last year's elk rubs, last year's deer rubs. The cool thing about early spring, late winter is a lot of the old scrapes are still visible. So the grass hasn't grown yet. You can see where there was a scrape line. You can really find the main trails still, sometimes even in the snow. And it really kind of helps you fine tune areas that you might want to check out the following season. So we use it as an inventory tool as well. For deer, I would say inventory is a little more important because deer's home range is substantially smaller than an elk's home range. So a lot of times if you're picking up elk sheds, that's probably just an elk's winter range. A lot of those bulls don't hang out real close to where they actually will be come season. Still a good tool, you know the bull exists, but the odds of finding that bull are a little more bleak than they would be on the deer side. So great tool for both inventory and checking for rut sign and so on and so forth, different sign that you'd want to target that coming season. So a lot of times we'll take that intel that we gain from shed season and then we'll pour it right into summer scouting. So we have our areas kind of picked out based on what rut sign we've seen. We have areas picked out based on past hunting experiences, but not everybody, they might not have a past hunting experience, so they're starting fresh. And that's where I think shed hunting is a great tool. But as we roll into summer scouting, I would really say that there's a lot of different things that are important at this time. So number one, you're going to be more than likely putting up trail cameras. We usually put our trail cameras up sometime in July, sometimes sooner. It's kind of fun to watch the deer growth, but we try to not invade an area too heavily. So if we're going in, we're usually putting a camera on the edge of a bedding area or on a fringe or somewhere where those deer are coming from a bedding area and traveling to a food source or water or whatever the case. And it can really vary based on if it's a dry year, a wet year. A lot of that'll change potentially where you want to put your cameras that year. But I really do believe that if you put a camera on a pinch point where like 3 draws and 3 main trails come together, you're just increasing your odds to get photos that might prove helpful come season and deciding where you want to hunt. So I do think trail cameras are a huge tool. Putting them in the right place is very important. Otherwise, they're not that useful of a tool. So spend a little extra time making sure that you put them in the spot that you think is going to be good. I guess the big takeaway there is if you're not using trail cameras, highly recommend it. They scout for you while you're not there, which is a huge benefit. Pretty much everybody probably is using them now, but it's a good thing to do. A lot of people ask, are you worried about your trail cameras getting stolen on public land? And I'd be lying if I said it doesn't cross my mind. But I look at it a little different. A lot of people lock them up, which is a great idea. Personally, I'd rather run like 4 extra cameras versus buying all the stuff to lock them up. So what I like to do is pretty tall guy. So I like to put the trail camera up high in the tree, sometimes even use a couple tree steps and point it down a little bit so it keeps people honest. Unless they have a tree step with them or they make a special trip to go back, they shouldn't be messing with your camera even if they see it, because they don't have an easy way to get to it. So that's just one thing we like to do, is we'll put those up a little higher. Jeremy hates me for it because he's a little vertically challenged. So we butt heads on that part of it every once in a while. But that's just one thing I think you can do if that's on the back of your mind without spending a bunch of money on lock boxes and whatnot. Put it high in a tree. It gives you kind of a bigger, wider angle too, depending on where you're at, which is really cool. But I do like to, when I do that, I'll put it up, I'll look around, try to find a tree stand location or ground blind. Just kind of envision that if something shows up, this may be where you want to hunt. And you're not married to that spot. You can put your stand elsewhere, you can put your ground blind elsewhere. Come November, you might slam in there and just get right in their bedroom, which is a really effective way to do it that time of year. But during the summer, I try to stay out of those main bedding areas. Occasionally, you might still bump deer. They don't always bed in bedding areas. Sometimes they're bedding in the most random spot and catch you off guard. But anything you can do to limit the human to deer interaction is going to keep those deer more consistent, and hopefully you'll have a little better luck come season with those deer still being in the same area. As far as elk are concerned, a lot of the same stuff applies, but water and wallows are super important. Water can be real important for deer too, especially on dry years when they have very few locations to drink from. Water tanks, water holes, streams, anything of that nature, naturally you're going to find deer and elk there. But rolling into like mid-August and even into September, I would really say that if you're chasing elk, you want the majority of your cameras on wallows. That's one place that elk will probably return to if you get pictures of them there. One place that's going to be, you're going to be really likely to have an opportunity to harvest that bull if you are hunting that same wallow that he's hit multiple times. So next thing I'd like to touch on, I think, is During hunting season, one very overlooked thing, especially for people that don't have a ton of time, is they'll plan a great big hunting trip and they want as many days to hunt as possible. So let's say they have a week and they're gonna go on a 7-day hunt, wherever it's at. They take off the day before season, or maybe 2 days before season, get there, get set up, and it's opening day. And they haven't scouted, they haven't done anything. Personally, if it was up to me, if I had 7 days to hunt, I'd scout 4 and hunt 3, because scouting is when you typically kill your animal. And I don't mean like you're shooting it before season, I just mean you're finding that animal, you know where to be on opening day, you know where to hunt those first few days, because hopefully you've pinpointed your target, bull or deer, at that point, and they move. It's no guarantee by any means, but scouting is so important right before season, so important. And I think it's often overlooked because naturally everyone wants to hunt as much as they can. And don't get me wrong, you can kind of scout while hunting as well, but now you have other hunting pressure, and it's just gonna limit your chances a little bit of actually picking up on a pattern of an animal. We've shot a lot of deer and elk over the years in the first couple days of season, and I would 100% contribute that to a little bit of luck, first off, or maybe a lot of luck, but second off, a lot of scouting right up to the season.
We classed a herd on the sloping south slope.
Unreal. That's just my personal preference, and it's worked for us, so I would highly recommend taking that route if possible. But rolling into season, I would also recommend don't be afraid to scout during season. I mean, you're hunting and you're scouting. Just remember that every time you're out hunting, you're also scouting. You might not shoot one, but you might see a common trend, like 3 days in a row, you're sitting in a stand, you see a deer go the same place 2 different times, or an elk come through the same valley a couple different times. And that's basically your trigger to get in there, move, make a move. Don't just wait for them to slip up. Sometimes you need to go to them, get in there, and that can really help. A lot of people that are just like, I'm just gonna hunt, and they feel like they're stuck to their stand, stuck to the ground blind, stuck to the position they're in. Don't be afraid to make a move in the middle of season, because that can be one of the best ways to kill a big buck or big bull, or your target buck or bull. So everything can be out the window once the rut gets here, but when you're hunting early season, all these scouting tips should really help you out. Plus, if you know a deer's in that area, it's still going to benefit you come the rut. They still like to stay in those core areas. Move forward into late season scouting, and I like to use late season as a time to kind of figure out winter ranges, figure out where the deer are hanging out. It typically holds pretty true. Obviously, there's a lot of variables that can change where they might be. Biggest one being weather and food. So if you're hunting like the Black Hills on public land and forest area, there's not a ton of food sources. So you know where there is food sources and where there's good grass, you're gonna find elk and deer in the wintertime. There is some seasons that coincide with like December, so you get heavy snowfalls. It's good to keep an eye on those late season areas where deer might be hanging out. I would say that's definitely one of the big tools we use, and it also helps roll us into shed hunting, because if you kind of figure out where they're hanging out come December and January, it's going to make you more successful when they start dropping. So I hope that video was helpful. If you have any questions at all, always feel free to message us. Anything about hunting South Dakota, hunting other states will help what we can. But if you're thinking about coming to South Dakota, great state to hunt, and we're more than happy to point you in the right direction, give you some advice. we're not going to send you waypoints on where to hunt, but there's plenty of public land to go around. We have 1.2 million acres right in our backyard. So thanks for watching this video. Hoped it helped. We'll see you next time.